Part 186. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1851. Television has a fatal attraction for children, so only Fu Bao and Feng Qingxiu were left on the tractor when Lu Tianzi drove home. The other children stayed in the brigade office waiting to watch TV. When they heard that Feng Qingxiu had bought a TV, the eyes of the old men who were playing chess in the yard lit up. Hey, a TV? There's a picture that can show people, but it's better than a radio. It's time for our team to be lively. Cheng Baoqiu pushed the chessboard forward. Let's go and have a look. Maybe we can even watch it on the TV. See Jiang's figure. Most of the old men and women who were decentralized had never been exposed to television. When Cheng Baoqiu said this, they suddenly became interested. Aunt Su was the first to speak. Just take a look and see what the TV in Er Xiang's mouth looks like. Old Lu, let's go together. When Ruya greeted Lu's father and called Jin Ruoku. Wang Quilin, who was steaming steamed buns on the earthen stove in the kitchen, couldn't help but shook her head and shouted at the door, "It's time for the rolls to be taken out of the pot. Zioxiu, bring the steamed bun basket over here, the luggage will be packed later." Come here. Feng Qingxiu asked Lu Tianzi and Fu Bao to move their luggage to their room, and quickly went to the kitchen to help. There are many people in the family, and we often eat together. Several large pots of steamed buns are steamed, and several pots are left to dry in wicker baskets. There are thick noodles, double noodles, and a pot of cornmeal nests. As for steamed buns, the new ones are white flour rolls. Although it is said to be white, it is actually slightly yellowish and not as white as snow. After all the rolls were out of the pot, Wang Quilin poured a ladle of cold water into the pot, took off the coarse cloth on the grate, turned around and washed it, then added a few ladles of water to the pot, spread the coarse cloth on the grate, and kneaded it well. The yellow steamed buns woke up and said, "This is the last pot of the day. Guess what I mixed in the dough?" Feng Qingxiu bent down and smelled it, then put the lid on the pot. "It smells like pumpkin." Wang Quilin laughed and said, "As for your nose, I saw that there were a lot of old pumpkins at home. I cooked pumpkin rice and stewed pumpkin vegetables every day. I was tired of eating them, so I steamed some and mixed them into the noodles. I steamed some before pot. The kids say it tastes better than the one mixed with cornmeal. Corn flour is thick and can irritate your throat. It's not as delicate as pumpkin, and the kids are quite naughty," Feng Qingxiu said honestly. Wang Quilin nodded, changed the subject, and asked, "When do you plan to take your children back to the capital?" "In a few days. I'm not even halfway through my 2-month vacation." After listening to Feng Qingxiu's words, Wang Quilin hummed, "Let me know in advance when you are leaving, and I will prepare more food for you. Your third uncle and I have decided not to go to the capital with you. We will grow up with your father and you at home keep me company." Feng Qingxiu was stunned. "Won't you come with us?" "Auntie, I still want to take Dad away with me. Now we are in the transition period between old and new, everything is unstable, and Jiang is very busy. Your father said that he will not go to the capital for the time being. After all, his elements are there, and people cannot move around casually. At home, there are still old men and women who have not been rehabilitated. It is better to stay at home and wait until the situation stabilizes and everyone is accounted for before we decide whether to go or not." Feng Qingxiu wanted to ask her father-in-law for clarification, but when it was dinner time, the old man and his children who went out to watch TV had not returned yet. She went over and saw the scene at the door of the office, and her jaw almost dropped. There was a sea of people, men, women, old and young, sitting or standing, all staring at a TV set on a square table. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1852. The 12-inch TV was too small for Feng Qingxiu, who had been exposed to a 60-inch high-definition LCD screen, and the picture was not very clear, but it still attracted the folks from the Wangla Brigade. The scene was comparable to watching a movie. A bamboo pole was erected at the door of the office, holding a light bulb, which emitted a dim light and illuminated the heads of people crowded together. Fortunately, I didn't put the TV at home, Feng Qingxiu said secretly after seeing this scene. When she was looking for someone in the dim light, the TV screen suddenly dimmed and turned into snowflakes. The audience sitting in the first row became anxious. Ouch, ouch, Zibao, come and see why there is no one there, where are they gone? The signal is not good. Zibao hurriedly stepped forward to debug. After debugging for a long time, the snowflakes disappeared and people appeared, but it was the news broadcast that was broadcast on time at 7 o'clock, a program that only started on July 1st this year. It's better than the radio, which only has sound but no pictures, but it's not as good as the movie. The movie screen is relatively big, but the TV is too small. It's far away and I can't even see what's on it. Who told you to sit at the back? Isn't it late? You didn't tell me earlier that there was a TV to watch. Captain, it's getting cold, and there isn't much work. When will the cinema above come to our brigade to show a movie? Captain, you can discuss it with your superiors and treat it as a reward for our great harvest this year. That's right, it's been a long time since we played a movie. Hearing the opinions of the young people around him, Wang Zhenqiu laughed and scolded, who said there is no work? People who see a job are able to find work every day, while people who see no work are too lazy to take advantage of them. I washed a lot of sweet potatoes today and will start flouring them tomorrow. This year's vermicelli hasn't arrived yet, and the bosses are urging me. A group of young people suddenly fell into disgrace. We're going to make powder tomorrow? That's a tiring job. Captain, can't you let us rest for 2 days? Take a break. Do you get any work points after taking a break? Do you have money or food points? No money or food. You don't want to marry a wife anymore. The young man who spoke was standing and got a kick on the butt. He turned around to see that it was him. Dad got mad and shut up angrily. Wang Zhenqiu smiled and looked at the bustle of father training his son in front of him. Father Lu and Yiqian are both smart, and Zibao is flexible. In the past 2 years, in addition to developing the breeding industry, the Wangla Brigade has also built several semi-mechanical workshops, including an oil mill, a mill, and a vermicelli workshop. The vermicelli workshop is only open in winter. Started work, specializing in sweet potato vermicelli. The quality is so good that it is sold directly in the city, and it is quite famous. Feng Qingxiu heard this and walked over and interrupted, how many days will it take for the vermicelli to be ready? I can take some with me when I return to the capital. Vermicelli is fragile and inconvenient to mail. It is difficult to eat sweet potato vermicelli made in my hometown in the capital. Wang Zhenqiu turned to his niece and smiled, it depends on the weather. I can't say how long it will take. The selected sweet potatoes have just been washed and not broken yet. Tomorrow, if they are broken, they will have to be filtered twice, and the sweet potatoes will have to be filtered twice after the noodles are dried in the sun, they have to be beaten into paste. One step after another requires a lot of effort. You can't be sloppy at all. After the noodles are made, they have to be dried in the sun. So troublesome. Feng Qingxiu was speechless. She had never seen the scene of vermicelli processing. It was rare in her previous life, and she had never been in a vermicelli processing factory in this life. The production teams in the countryside rarely had the conditions to make vermicelli by themselves, so naturally they did not understand the process. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1853. Wang Zhenqiu smiled and said, How can we have vermicelli stewed with cabbage without trouble? By the way, are you looking for the children? They are all sitting in the first row. Feng Qingxiu thought about it, nodded and said, I'll tell them to go home for dinner. After calling the children, they were staring at the TV and unwilling to go home. The cream cake they had been thinking about for a long time could not arouse their interest. When they found the old people waved their hands and said, we will starve to death if we don't eat. We will go back after watching the TV, just leave some food for us. Even if the news broadcast is not interesting, no one is willing to leave immediately, and everyone watches it with gusto. Feng Qingxiu discovered that there were quite a few people like her who came to call their families for dinner, but almost none called them home. This showed how powerful the temptation of television was. She had no choice but to return the same way, and hastily chatted with Wang Quilin and Fuebao. The ground ate first, and the rest of the food was warmed in the big pot. It was not until 8 or 9 o'clock that the people who were still unsatisfied were ushered in. Uncle Su, Aunt Su, Wenjin, and other old men and women did not often eat here. Guan Yu and Jojo also took Jojo's grandmother to start a new business, so those who came back were Lu's father, grandson, and Cheng Baoqiu. The TV is worth buying, Cheng Baoqiu spoke while sipping the soup. Feng Qingxiu looked at Father Lu. Dad, the third aunt said that neither you nor the third uncle and the third aunt will return to Beijing with us. Father Lu nodded and said, the time has not come yet. While we can still move, we will stay at home and keep company with the old men who were devolved. When they are rehabilitated one by one, I guess the country's control on population circulation will also be loosened. Now that everything is stable, we seniors will move in with you. Zibao swallowed the food in his mouth and said in surprise, Grandpa, you won't come with us? Yes, Father Lu looked particularly kindly towards his grandson. Zibao frowned and said, then I will stay with my grandpa at home, and my younger brothers and sisters will go home with their mother first. It just so happens that I feel that my grandparents have a vast amount of knowledge, but I have only learned a drop in the ocean. I am really reluctant to leave just now. When everyone is rehabilitated, everyone has his own future, but I don't have such a good opportunity and such sufficient time. The father-in-law refused to leave, and now the eldest son also refused to leave. Feng Qingxiu was stunned for a moment. Zibao, you. Mom, Zibao's clear black and white eyes shone with a gleam of wisdom, the more I learn from my grandparents, the more shallow I feel. After careful consideration, I still think it is better to stay in my hometown with my grandpa. Feng Qingxiu wrinkled her nose and tapped his forehead. You know how your grandfather could have thought deeply if he didn't leave. Zibao chuckled, I'll be thinking about it for a while. Feng Qingxiu sighed, don't you miss your dad? He hasn't seen you for a long time, and he was afraid that you would completely forget him, so he specially asked me to take you back so that we can reunite as a family. This is great. If your grandfather and your third grandfather and your third grandmother don't leave, how can I explain to him if you stay in your hometown? Let's just take some photos and bring them back to Dad. When you go back, let Dad send you some new photos. Zibao put down his chopsticks and hugged her arm sideways. Didn't you say that the college entrance examination will happen sooner or later? When the time comes, I will be admitted to a university in the capital, and we will meet soon. I will definitely bring my grandpa and my third grandpa and grandma with me. Of course, before that, you and your dad will also have to work hard to rehabilitate Grandpa Wen, Grandpa Jin, and the others. Their homes are all in the capital. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1854. When Zibao was talking, his younger brothers, sisters, and Ye Yan all put down their chopsticks and watched him talking to Feng Qingxiu. Now that there was a result, they were all anxious, especially Lu Erxian. Although this brother often takes care of them, it feels really good to have his protection. Brother, why don't you leave? What's the point of studying? Grandpas are so strict. Every day they either urge us to study, practice calligraphy, or draw. It's so tiring. Lu Erxian is very anxious, without his brother to protect him. Why did he go to the military compound in the capital to show off his power? He heard that the Cotter's children in the capital compound refused to obey anyone, and he was not sure of defeating them. Zibao flicked his forehead and said, "How do you still dislike being able to get the teachings from my grandfathers that no one else can ask for? Among us, you are the laziest. You can't practice calligraphy well and can't draw well. Okay, I still have the nerve to say it's hard work." Lu Erxian puffed out his cheeks. Fu Bao frowned and said, "Brother, what you said makes me want to stay. Even the school teachers in the military compound are far less educated than the old men and women at home, let alone her favorite painting and calligraphy. No one can reach Wen Ruyu's level." Feng Qingxiu said hurriedly, "If you don't go back, are you going to let me take Yayan home?" Me, Yayan, who has always been taciturn, pointed to his nose. "My dad often goes on missions. Even at home, he can't take care of me. Why should I go back alone?" Feng Qingxiu smiled and said, "Your grandfather has been transferred to the capital. Didn't I tell you? Your grandparents are waiting for your family to live with them. They live in the same compound like us, and there are nannies and orderlies who can take good care of you. Of course, I'm not driving you away. Our two families are next to each other, so you can live anywhere." Yayan was a little sad at first, but after hearing the second half, he finally smiled a little. "I will go back as soon as Fu Bao and the triplets go back. Otherwise, I won't know many people wherever I go, and I will be very lonely." Of course they will all go back with me. Respecting Zibao's opinion does not mean that Feng Qingxiu allows the other children to stay in their hometown. Zibao nodded, "Just leave me alone." Fu Bao whispered, "But I can't let go of Grandpa Wen. I feel that studying with Grandpa Wen for one day is better than studying for 10 years. How old are you?" "I haven't studied for 10 years even though I have tried so hard." Feng Qingxiu was a little funny and touched her braid. "Although your mother and I are far different from your Grandpa Wen in terms of level, we are still more than enough to teach you. Just like your elder brother said that when Grandpa Wen is rehabilitated, he will still return to the capital, and you can often ask for advice then." Fu Bao thought about it and felt better. "Oh, I want to study with Grandpa Wen and live with my parents. Am I too greedy?" Feng Qingxiu smiled and said, "So I can only choose one of the two." "Dun dun, Zhuang, what do you mean?" You two were silent, and I almost ignored your opinions. "Of course I'm following Mom," Zhuang said without hesitation, and Dun Dun nodded. As for Lu Erxian, he was caught in a dilemma. He wanted to go back, but also wanted to take his elder brother back with him. He was so entangled that his eyebrows were fighting, and in the end he was ignored by everyone. Anyway, he had to go back with him. After this dinner, it was officially decided who would return to Beijing. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1855. At dawn the next day, the Wanglu Brigade organized strong laborers to beat powder, and they were very busy. Because the fan workshop was built on the river northwest of the brigade, not far from the Lu family, Feng Qingxiu returned from sending her children to school. When she was about to get home, she walked along the road to see the excitement. The so-called flouring is to crush the selected and washed sweet potatoes, use the tractor engine to drive the specially purchased flour machine, and add water to it when beating. The sweet potatoes and pulp should be crushed as finely as possible, and then loaded into the crane. The pulp is filtered through cloth and beaten by a dedicated person. It needs to be filtered twice. The filtered solution slowly flows into the pool below. The pool is specially made for grinding powder. There are 4 pools side by side. They are rectangular. The bottom and 4 walls are covered with a thick layer of cement. They are ground very smooth. There is no dust after scrubbing. It is very clean and hygienic to use to precipitate sweet potato powder. But that's it. If the vermicelli is not cleaned during processing, it will taste like it contains sand, and the sandy vermicelli will be particularly unpalatable. As for the remaining sweet potato powder residue in the hanging cloth, not a bit is wasted, all is used to feed the pigs. I heard that the sweet potato powder flowing into the pool needs to settle for 2 days, then drain the water, add water, stir, continue to settle, then dry the powder, boil the pulp, drain the wire, and dry it in the sun to get the finished product. Feng Qingxiu is not interested. I continued to look at the process of making fans, and divided the candies, pastries, and other items brought from Shanghai to each family. Wang Jiao was not at home, so Feng Qingxiu did not send her to her. Instead, she asked Wen Ruyu to study. Although there have been frequent correspondences over the years, and I have sent my works to Wen Ruyu for review, it is not as profound as face-to-face learning. Many details suddenly became clear to me with Wen Ruyu's explanation. After a few days, the study comes to an end. Wen Ruyu felt regretful in her heart and sighed, "You are very talented, can endure hardships, and are patient. If you didn't have work to take up most of your time, your level would be higher. Your current level can only be regarded as a hobby. Maybe over time, after years of practice, you can become a calligrapher and painter, but you won't be able to become a Taishan Baidu level master." However, Feng Qingxiu was very optimistic and did not have too much ambition for fame and fortune. She said with a smile, "As an artistic pursuit, this is very good. Without teachers, I will not even have the chance to become a calligrapher or painter in the future. Besides, she is still continuing to study her medical skills and cannot relax at all. Art can increase self-cultivation, but medical skills can save people. In an era when the country is extremely short of talents, even if her medical skills are better than those above, she cannot give up this job in order to pursue art." Wen Ruyu understood her choice very well. Saving the world and saving people should naturally be the first priority, while art was a secondary priority. Traditional culture has been reduced to dregs. There are very few people like Feng Qingxiu who are willing to learn from him and let his children learn from him. Without the company of these children and the care of the Lu family, he is likely to fall behind some old people. As friends, they died miserably and lived worse than pigs and dogs. Wen Ruyu wondered when the cultural heritage could be revived. "Right now, I just want to teach you and the children well and prevent the inheritance from being cut off from me. I heard that Zibao won't go back to Beijing with you. That's good. Let him learn from me. His talent is amazing. Above you and Fubao." Feng Qingxiu sighed softly, "I want to take Zibao with me, but I respect his decision." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1856. Zibao is already a big child, a handsome young man. Privately, she also hopes that her son will learn more knowledge. Getting along with these masters is far more beneficial than being with herself and Lu Zhang. He Qingyin came in with an old goose and heard the conversation between the teacher and the junior sister. She said, "There is nothing wrong with staying in my hometown. Is it possible that our group of old guys are worse than the teachers in the school for the children of cotters? What they can teach the students, we can do it too, but they may not understand what we can teach. If we didn't think it would be better for our children to live with their parents when they were young, we would all want to keep Fubao and the triplets by our side and teach them well. They are all young. Human essence adds countless fun to our lives." Feng Qingxiu couldn't help laughing when she saw her. Even though she is down and out, He Qingyin is still an elegant old lady with a scholarly atmosphere. She should live among the scenes of pavilions, bridges, and flowing water, but now she is carrying an old goose. The old goose was tied very tightly, probably knowing that he was about to die, and his cries were particularly fierce. "Sister, where did the old goose come from? I don't remember that we raised geese. Poultry is required per person, and one household is not allowed to have more than 3. They only raise a few chickens, and they usually buy them from the breeding farm." Hikingian smiled and said, "Jinquiwa will marry her daughter-in-law at the end of the year. Our brigade's work score is high. She has saved a lot of money, but she can't buy what she wants without tickets or coupons. By chance, the Red Army sent me a lot of things. There were 2 pieces of good cloth among them. Jinquiwa saw them and begged me to get money to buy a piece of corduroy. I took part of the money and also asked her for one of her chickens, ducks, and geese at the market price. There are some chickens, ducks, and goose eggs. I'll catch the old geese today, and I'll catch the chickens and ducks another day. That piece of corduroy is enough to make a whole set of clothes, and the price is much more expensive than these chickens, ducks, and geese." After explaining the origin of the old goose, she continued with a smile, "The last time I stewed the old goose, I saw that everyone loved it, especially Urxian. Let's kill the old goose and stew it at your house. It will be rotten by noon. It's time for the kids to eat when they get back from school." "Okay." Feng Qingxiu stepped forward to help slaughter the old goose. The old goose stewed in the iron pot tastes delicious. The 2 sisters slaughtered and disposed of the old goose, and Feng Qingxiu mentioned it to her small yard. After a while, Wang Jiao came over and happened to see her sitting at a small square table in the kitchen, waving a machete to chop the old goose on the cutting board. The blade of the machete shone coldly in the sun. "Xiaoxiu, your posture is good, a bit like my Lao Zhang's chopped pork ribs." Feng Qingxiu raised her head, pursed her bright red lips, her pear dimple suddenly appeared, and she smiled brightly. "When did my cousin come back from the city? Come in and sit down. I brought some candies and cakes from Shanghai and left some for you. I'm taking advantage of you again. The snacks and candies from Shanghai are delicious, and the cream is also easy to use." Wang Jiao suddenly smiled and put the wooden bucket in front of her. "I've saved enough for the 200 yuan I owe you. After counting, I asked Lao Zhang to reserve a pair of pork belly in advance, and cut a piece of pork belly and send it to you. Thank you for the money you lent us." Feng Qingxiu raised her arm to wipe the sweat stains on her forehead, and asked curiously, "Why are you so polite, cousin? When I came home a few days ago, you said you didn't save enough. In just a few days, you have saved enough." Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1857. Wang Jiao shrugged. "The 30 yuan someone owed our family was paid back to us yesterday." She opened the handkerchief she took out from her pocket, counted out 30 old or new Unity cards in front of her, and handed them to Feng Qingxiu. "Now, count them, there are 20 in total. After paying back the money, our family will have no money. The debt is gone. Then I'll keep it." Feng Qingxiu put down the machete, took it and stuffed it into her pocket without counting it carefully. "Please order a little, so you don't want to find that the money is missing after I leave," Wang Jiao said. Feng Qingxiu smiled and said, "How can I not trust my cousin?" After getting to know Wang Jiao for more than 10 years, I found that although Wang Jiao has many minor problems, she still has a lot of principles in life. She is no worse than ordinary people in dealing with people, and she is very successful in her marriage. Zhang Yuejin is completely devoted to her, and so is her mother-in-law. He devoted himself to taking care of several children for her. Wang Jiao was really happy to hear what she said. "Cousin, please wait, I'll get them." Feng Qingxiu entered the room and took out the Yashuang cream and the wrapped candies and pastries and handed them to Wang Jiao. "I spent a lot of money buying books and TVs this time. I spent a lot of money on other things." "It's not much, cousin, don't be too little. Wang Jiao directly picked up a piece of white rabbit toffee, peeled off the wrapper and stuffed it into her mouth, and said vaguely, "It's quite a lot, I eat one a day. This pack of toffee is enough for me to eat for a long time." Feng Qingxiu smiled and scolded, "Cousin, you can't just take care of yourself and save some for your children." According to her observation, Wang Jiao is not really a loving mother to her 2 sons and 1 daughter. Maybe it's because in this era everyone is working hard for life, and children are generally left alone, and a particularly good life is to be fed, drank, clothed, and warm. Well, no one thought there was anything wrong with Wang Jiao doing this. Wang Jiao rolled her eyes, I know, I'll share it with them later, I won't eat alone. I just said it casually, cousin, don't be angry." Feng Qingxiu smiled, took out the wooden basin for washing vegetables, poured the pig waste in the wooden bucket into the basin, rinsed the wooden bucket with water, and placed it at the door of the kitchen so that Wang Jiao would not forget it when she returned home. Clinker Wang Jiao had nothing to do and was not in a hurry to go back. He just watched her busy while he sat aside, eating melon seeds and gossiping. "Put the old goose into the pot and bring it to a boil." Skimming off the foam in the pot, covering the pot, Feng Qingxiu stuffed 2 thick logs into the stove. The small fire in the stove was kept on, and hot water was boiled in the other pot to collect the food Wang Jiao sent. Pigs go into the water. It takes a lot of work to make a whole pig into the water, especially the pig's large intestine. If you don't get it right, it will smell bad. I heard that senior cotters have nannies at home. In order not to be accused of exploiting working people, what are they called, life assistants and life secretaries? At Lu Jiang's level, do you still do housework yourself, although Wang Jiao is more diligent than when she was young? He did a little bit more, but he still didn't do most of the housework. Things like cleaning pig waste were Zhang Yuejin's responsibility. Feng Qingxiu laughed and said, "Am I the only one who looks good if I bring a nanny back? Besides, I don't do the housework alone. Everyone is at home and helping. No one is idle. Sometimes we feel happy when we do housework together." Wang Jiao muttered, "Happy shit, not only is it tiring, but it also makes your hands rough easily. Now there are no conditions. When conditions are available, you can hire 2 nannies to do housework. That will be easier when the reform and opening up, the economy develops rapidly, and you can hire nannies if you have a little wealth, and you don't have to do the housework yourself." Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1858. Wang Jiao slapped her thigh, "Lao Zhang is not a cotter. If he hires 2 nannies to do housework, doesn't he become a capitalist? Capitalists will be overthrown, and they will suffer. I have to talk about Lao Zhang later. Lu Zhang has become a big cotter. Well, he has been killing pigs and selling meat for more than 10 years, and he has worked hard without any merit, but he has not been promoted to an official position." Feng Qingxiu couldn't help laughing, listening to what my cousin said, "It's time to supervise my cousin-in-law." Just as he was talking, someone outside called out, "Is Comrade Feng Qingxiu at home? I have your package list." Feng Qingxiu quickly washed her hands and walked out. She looked at an unknown postman and took several orders from him. I remember that some packages were delivered directly to the door before. The postman touched his head and said with a silly smile, "There are parcels delivered to the door. They are very few, but most of them are parcel slips. You can take the letter of introduction to the post office and get it back. Comrade, you have too many parcels, several parcels. It's big and heavy. My bike can't carry that much, so you have to pick it up yourself." The tractor was grinding flour, and the lumps of flour that had settled in the past 2 days had been taken out and exposed to the sun. Feng Qingxiu couldn't borrow it, even if he paid for the gas himself, so he borrowed a mule cart from the brigade and got up early the next day to rush there. County seat. Lu Tianzi and Guan Yu had to go to work, while Fu Bao, Yan, and the triplets went to school, so it was 11 Bao who accompanied her into the city. With a letter of introduction as proof and a package list, the couple quickly picked up the college entrance examination materials sent from Shanghai. But when Feng Qingxiu looked through the package list, she found that there was another package sent from Kunlun, so she took the opportunity to pick it up. Feng Qingxiu was also exhausted and sweating while carrying the books to the car with the help of the staff. "Mom, who sent this?" "It's heavy." Zibao picked up the small package, the one from the northwest. Feng Qingxiu told her son to sit still, whipped the mule, and left the post office door. "I don't know him either." The name of the person who sent the package was very unfamiliar, He Bao's Hung, but he was from the Kunlun military region, and it was indeed sent to him. Feng Qingxiu felt that he might have some connection with him, but it was unknown what the connection was. Zibao, who has a deep understanding of his parents' wide acquaintance, said, "Let me see what was sent." "You can take it apart anyway, there are no prohibited items now." As soon as the package was opened, Zibao was stunned. "It's a stone, Mom, it's wrapped quite firmly." Feng Qingxiu turned around and saw that it was a pack of Hessian jade seeds, some large and some small. The largest one was more than 2 fists, and the smallest one was no more than the size of a thumb, some with skin, some without skin, some with skin. There are also autumn pear skin, gold sprinkled skin, jujube red skin, etc. At a glance, the jade without skin is very delicate, with excellent whiteness and good oiliness. They are all high-quality Hessian jade seeds. "Mom, you really don't know the person who sent these things. If he doesn't know you and has a very good relationship, how would he know that you like these things?" Feng Qingxiu shook her head and said, "I really don't know you. Come on, let's go back to the post office and call your dad and ask him to find out. The phone bill at this time is very expensive, and it has to be transferred, which is very troublesome. The Wangla Brigade has the money to install telephones, but everyone thinks it is expensive. The installation fee is expensive, and the phone bill is expensive. With that money, it is better to add other items to the brigade. So now the Wangla Brigade has electricity, and it also has tractors and several types of machinery. But there is no telephone. Anyway, the telegraph is cheaper and more convenient than the telephone." Discovering that the number Feng Qingxiu dialed was a military internal line, the staff member standing nearby looking after the phone looked at her with a little more awe in his eyes and walked away to give her a private space to talk. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1859. He Bao's Hung. I don't know this person either. I have never heard of this name in my memory. I called Huo Biding later and asked him. He is in the Kunlun military region and should know something. I have asked him to take care of Hessian jade before. He knows about you. Love these. Lu Zhang had just finished the work at hand when he received the call. He couldn't help but pinch his nose, leaned back on the chair, and relaxed his stiff body a little. Although the most difficult and dark time has passed, many aspects of the country are still riddled with holes, and some of the ideas above are very serious. It was difficult to reach an agreement, and he was so busy that he especially missed the simple life before he had any important responsibilities. Feng Qingxiu could hear the tiredness in his voice. Forget it if you don't know. I'm not with you, so you can find more time for yourself to rest. Don't work so hard. Let them do whatever it takes to solve the problem below. Give them opportunities for experience. The smile in Lu Jiang's eyes flowed down the slightly exposed wrinkles at the corners of his eyes. I will take care of myself. When will you come back? My wife and children are not around, and the new place I moved into really doesn't feel like a home. Even though there are all the guards and orderlies, I am still lonely. Whether it is physical or psychological, I feel that the night is too long every day. The deep and rich voice penetrated into the ears, making her heart itch, and Feng Qingxiu's face felt a little hot. Although she has been married for more than 15 years, she is still a little shy. Come on, I will take the study materials I bought home today, and then I will set a time to return to the capital. Taking a flight from Shanghai, I will probably go there before boarding the plane. I stayed in Shanghai for 2 days and took the children around. By the way, I sent some study materials to the capital. Don't forget to accept them. Uncle Joe was rehabilitated a few days ago and went to the capital. He was alone and getting older. Don't forget to go see him. Uncle Joe is doing well. Not only has his job been restored, but he has also been promoted to a higher level than before decentralization, and he participates in decision-making meetings on national affairs. Now he lives next to ours. He has received a supplementary salary from the state and has bought a lot of things. I sent it to the old men at home, and also bought a lot of things for our children and sent them to me. I also said that I would buy a harvester for our team. Before Zhou Fengshu was decentralized, his salary level and allowances were very high, several thousand a year. In recent years, the salary and allowances have been at least 30 or 40,000. Hearing what Lu Zhang said, Feng Qingxiu felt relieved, and then she smiled and said, in this way, the old men and women who have not been rehabilitated will have an easier time in our brigade. The old men and women who walked out of the Wanglu Brigade after being rehabilitated never forgot to repay the Wanglu Brigade. The Wanglu team can develop so well because of their financial support. For example, Zhu Ling, and when you were the first to resume work and the first to reap rewards. He Qingyan was able to receive the package from He Hongjun without landing, and was able to trade with Jing Kuihua for chickens, ducks, and geese without causing any trouble. This was because the entire Wanglu Brigade and fellow villagers had a deep understanding that once the decentralized bad elements were rehabilitated, they would be destroyed. It will soar into the sky. This is also thanks to Wang Zhenqiu's strict control. The people in Wanglu Brigade are not as crazy and paranoid as outside. Meeting a captain like my uncle and receiving his protection is our family's and the old men's and old ladies' good fortune. Just because he didn't talk about it doesn't mean he doesn't understand the misery of many people in distress over the years. Feng Qingxiu smiled, so we have to be filial to our uncle. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1860. Yes, you are right. When you bring your father and children back, you will also bring your uncle to stay for a while. Lu Zhang is most grateful to Wang Zhenqiu for being the matchmaker between him and his wife. Without him, there would be no way he and his wife would have met. To know each other and stay together? Feng Qingxiu's face suddenly fell. If Dad doesn't come back, Zibao will have to stay in his hometown and continue studying. It's even less likely that my uncle will come back to Beijing with us. Zibao lay on her shoulder and shouted close to the microphone, Dad, don't listen to what Mom said is so pitiful. It's not like I won't go back to the capital, or I'll just go back later. Grandpa said, it's only a matter of 1 or 2 years, son. Father Lu looks at the current situation and his predictions are always extremely accurate. Lu Zhang heard his eldest son's voice and hurriedly asked his wife to give him the microphone. Although the father and son have often written to each other in the past 2 years to keep in touch with each other, and they have not become cold or alienated because they are far apart, but they can hear real voices and feel each other's true emotions on the phone. Lu Zhang also respects the decision of his eldest son. This son has never let him worry about him since he was a child. He is simply the most perfect son in the world. Since you want to stay in your hometown, then take good care of your grandfather and let your mother leave some more money for you. If you need anything, write to me, send me a message, or call me. Also, ask your mother to come back soon. After hearing this, Zibao's handsome face burst into a naughty smile and said, "Is this the last thing Dad wants to say? Okay, I will definitely urge Mom to take my brothers and sisters back to the capital as soon as possible to be with you." "You brat, are you making fun of your father? Don't you want Mom to go back early?" Zibao asked. Lu Jiang's throat trembled and he was speechless. Okay, let your mother come back early. If there is a knock on the door, I will hang up first. Lu Jiang never sloppily handles things, even if he finally talked to his wife and children once. Zibao hung up the phone, watched Feng Qingxiu pay the phone bill, and said with a smile, "Mom, did you hear that? Dad misses you." Feng Qingxiu's answer was to knock him on the head and pull him out. Hearing his grandson say that his son urged his daughter-in-law to return to Beijing on the phone, Father Lu deeply agreed. He was also very worried about his son being alone outside. Life with his wife and children was completely different from that without him. "Since Ajiang misses you and the child, let's leave early. Everything is fine at home and you don't need to worry." Feng Qingxiu has a straightforward personality, thought for a while, and said, "Okay, Dad, let's buy a ticket to Shanghai tomorrow. Keep 5 copies of these materials at home, donate 2 copies to the school, and then ask your uncle and aunt if they want it at home. If you want, each family will get 1 copy, and ask the students in the review class for the rest. If you want it, it will be on a first-come, first-served basis, while supplies last. Anyway, this is the quantity, there are no more." Since she was not just buying and selling, she paid for the postage out of her own pocket, so she was justified in selling the information. It's such a big sum of money. Even if she gave it away for free, it would be very destructive. "Okay." Zibao smiled and said, "I'll go to the review class and say hello." He was the most popular, and he often attended review classes. He would bring back a group of students that day, waving the big unity in his hand to buy materials from Feng Qingxiu, for fear of falling one step behind. Although knowledge is not taken seriously nowadays, in the Wanglu Brigade's perception, it is inferior in everything but reading. Most of the educated youths who are living well in Wanglu Brigade and do not want to return to the city are female educated youths. There are more people who want to go back to the city. Some even stay in their 30s without getting married just to go back to the city. If there is no quota for returning to the city, they have to rely on when studying. I put my hope in the country that Feng Qingxiu said would open up the college entrance examination. Naturally, I wanted a complete set of college entrance examination materials.